I ended my engagement to my fiancée after she asked for a break to revisit her ex. I sold our townhouse and took a job across the country. Fiona used to dance around the kitchen humming wedding playlist songs, barefoot, holding a mug of tea like it was a microphone. That feels like a lifetime ago. My name's Eric. I'm 27, live in Asheville, North Carolina, and I design houses for a living. I thought I had my future figured out, a small mountain wedding in October, a wife who loved the same trailhead cafes and used bookstores I did, and a home filled with film photos and quiet joy. That was before everything got weird. It started small. Fiona, 26, was a landscape photographer with a gentle, moody style. She used to light up talking about our wedding plans, the burnt orange table settings, a slow first dance under string lights, hiking boots hidden under her dress. She even cried when we found the spot on Craggy Gardens for our vows. Said it felt like magic. But then, something changed. Subtle at first. She'd shrug when I asked about cake flavors. Scroll her phone while I read our officiant's draft. She started missing vendor calls. When I asked if she was okay, she'd smile thinly and say, "Just tired, work's been heavy." But her Reddit stayed caught up, and her social feed stayed active. I told myself it was just nerves. Cold feet. That happens, right? But the moment it all truly started to crack? That was at a party. Her best friend Clara threw a game night, one of those icebreaker things where people write questions on scraps of paper. Someone pulled one out and read it aloud. If you could relive one past relationship, which would it be and why? There was the usual laughter and groans. A couple people answered awkwardly. Then Fiona, sitting across from me with her wine glass resting on her knee, said calmly, "Nathan, I guess." I was younger, but it felt real. My stomach went cold. I forced a laugh, but inside I felt like someone had dropped me off the edge of a cliff. Nathan, her ex from college. She hadn't mentioned him in years. I don't think anyone else at that table understood what that meant. But I did. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. Like it had been on her mind already. The days after that were worse. Her phone was suddenly glued to her hand. She'd drift during conversations, miss half of what I said, or nod vaguely like a glitching robot. I asked her if we were okay, and she'd always say, "Of course," and change the subject. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to ignore the obvious. But I wasn't stupid. Once, I asked her directly if she'd been in touch with Nathan. She froze, then smiled and said, "Why would I do that?" It was that smile that gave her away. I didn't press. I wish I had. But part of me was terrified of confirming the truth. So I waited, pretended, thought maybe the wedding would ground us again. That was the lie I told myself. But the truth had already slipped through the cracks. Fiona had started drifting back towards someone who belonged in her rear view. And instead of stopping, she was checking the mirror. Over and over. Looking back when we were supposed to be moving forward. She waited until after dinner. That should have been my first clue. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I'd made her favorite, penne with sun-dried tomato pesto, and she barely touched it. We ate in silence. The only sound was the low hum of the fridge and her fork scraping her plate without actually scooping anything. When she finally spoke, she didn't look at me. "I need to talk to you about something." That phrase. It always means something is about to break. "Okay," I said, setting my glass down. "What's up?" She stared at the salt shaker for a full 5 seconds. "I think I need a break." I blinked. "From what?" "From us," she said, and just like that, the ground shifted beneath me. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Fiona glanced up at me, then back down, like even eye contact was too much. I feel like I haven't really closed some doors. And before we make this permanent, I need to know if there's anything left between me and Nathan. There it was. The name she hadn't said since that party game. Now it sat in the middle of our dining table, heavier than the plates, the wine, the ring on her finger. I felt like someone had knocked the air out of me. "You want a break? So you can revisit a past relationship?" She winced. "It's not like that. I'm not trying to cheat or betray you. I need clarity. Before we spend the rest of our lives together, I need to be sure." I sat back slowly, fingers tightening around the edge of my chair. I could have yelled, accused, demanded, but I didn't. Instead, I swallowed hard and said, "And what happens if there is something still there?" She didn't answer right away. She chewed her bottom lip and said, "Then I guess I'll have to be honest with both of you." "So this is you being honest?" "Yes," she said quickly, like that word gave her permission to hurt me. I nodded slowly. I felt like I was watching someone I knew through glass. She looked like Fiona. She even sounded like her. But this wasn't the person I'd planned a life with. "I never asked you to be perfect," I said quietly. "I just asked you to show up. Be in this with me." She stood, pushing her chair back with a soft scrape. "I'm going to stay at my dad's for a little while. I'll take my camera gear and the essentials. I need space." That word again. Space. As if space fixes everything. I followed her to the door. She turned before leaving, like she was waiting for some sign of permission, or maybe expecting me to beg. Instead, I opened the door. "Eric," she said softly. "This isn't goodbye, right?" I said. "It's just a temporary thing." For clarity. She nodded once and stepped outside. I watched her walk down the steps, duffel slung over one shoulder, coat flapping in the wind like a flag someone forgot to take down. As soon as she disappeared down the driveway, I shut the door. I stood there for a long time, hands still on the knob, the silence pressing against my ears. She wanted a break. A pause. Space. She expected me to wait, to keep everything warm while she took a stroll through old memories. But standing in that foyer, I made a decision. She could take all the space she wanted. I wasn't going to be here when she came back. The day after Fiona left, I woke up before sunrise and didn't bother making coffee. I just stood in the middle of the living room, looking around at the space we were supposed to build a life in, the framed photos, the thrifted bookshelf she insisted we paint sage green, the yoga mat she always left unrolled beside the TV. It all felt foreign now, like I had stepped into someone else's home. So I did what I do best. I started making a plan. I called Theo that afternoon. He was one of my oldest friends from college, straight talking, no fluff, and a damn good real estate attorney. "She's gone for now," I told him. "But she thinks this is some kind of open-ended pause. I'm not sitting around like a spare tire." He didn't ask for details. Just said, "What do you need?" "Help selling the townhouse. It's in my name, and I want it sold. Fast." 2 days later, I met with a real estate agent. We walked the place room by room, and I explained what I wanted. Nothing flashy, just a clean sale and a quick exit. I hired a staging crew, ordered paint touch-ups, ripped down the fairy lights Fiona had hung over the mantel and boxed them up. The house changed fast after that. Her mugs with the chipped edges, boxed. Her scarves on the coat rack, gone. Her dog-eared stack of kinfolk magazines, tossed. I kept going until every trace of her was either in a moving box or in the trash. I sent all her things to her father's house in 2 large deliveries. No note, just a printed list of the items and a copy of the tracking number. But I did leave one small card inside the final box. Just 4 words. "You asked for space." The silence from her was louder than anything she could have said. Word started getting around after that. A couple of our mutual friends messaged me. "Hey, what's going on? Or did something happen with Fiona?" I didn't rant. I didn't spin a dramatic story. I just replied with the truth. She wanted to explore her feelings for someone else. I'm letting her. Most people left it at that. Some didn't. A few tried to defend her, say she was just finding herself. I didn't argue. I simply said, she put us on pause. I hit stop. There was something strangely satisfying about it, like sweeping out a room that had been cluttered for too long. By the end of the week, the house looked nothing like the place we had shared. It looked like my house now, my blank slate. And when I deleted the last shared playlist from my phone, her folk road trip songs and moody acoustic covers, I felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe years. It started with a text. "Fiona, hey, just checking in. Hope you're okay." I didn't answer. I let it sit there, unread. 2 days later, another. "Fiona, I saw the house listing. Are you really selling?" Then came the flood. "Fiona, Eric, what are you doing? You said this wasn't goodbye." "Fiona, I just needed time. You knew that." "Fiona, please don't do anything drastic. We can talk." I didn't respond to any of it. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because I had nothing left to give. She had already pulled the thread. I was just letting the whole thing unravel. Then, the text turned sharp. "Fiona, you didn't have to throw me out of my own life, you know. Fiona, you said you understood. Fiona, I just wanted clarity, not abandonment." That's when I finally replied. "Me, you didn't want clarity. You wanted options." A few minutes later, she called. I let it ring. Then another text popped up. "Fiona, this isn't fair. Love isn't black and white, Eric." I needed to explore that part of myself so I could be sure about us. That one made me laugh. The kind of dry, humorless laugh that comes from being insulted so gently it takes a second to sting. So I typed again. "Me, love doesn't mean keeping someone on standby while you go window shopping for your past." She didn't reply right away. But an hour later, I got another one. "Fiona, I never meant to hurt you. I just got scared. Nathan made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time." "Me, then that's your answer, isn't it?" She tried again a day later. A longer message, paragraphs, explaining that she thought she was doing the mature thing. That needing space wasn't betrayal. That she just didn't want to walk into a lifelong commitment with doubts. But all I saw were justifications dressed up as reflection. She wanted forgiveness without accountability. I sent one final message. "Me, you don't get to place someone on a shelf while you decide what you miss. That's not growth. That's indecision with a costume." After that, she stopped. And I knew I wasn't the fallback anymore. She wanted to see if her past still had magic. And by the time she realized it didn't, I had already packed up the future. For good. A month after the final text, I got the call. Portland. A boutique architecture firm I'd interviewed with last year when things felt stale here. Back then, I turned them down because Fiona wanted to stay in the mountains, near her favorite trail systems and family. Now, they had another opening. A senior designer spot. Better pay. Ocean access. Forest views. New air. I accepted within 48 hours. That same week, the townhouse went into escrow. The offer came in slightly under asking, but I didn't care. I just wanted out clean. I wanted fresh walls, new streets, places that didn't hold the shape of her voice. 2 days later, I made a single post on social media. Excited to start the next chapter. Grateful for the roots here, ready to stretch west. Portland. See you soon. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't throw shade. Just facts and forward motion. Still, the shift was immediate. Old friends liked the post with quiet approval. A few commented things like proud of you or long overdue. Even Fiona's cousin, who had once called me the chill glue at family dinners, left a. Fiona, on the other hand, didn't say a word. But she didn't have to. A few hours after my post, she put up her own. A filtered photo of a tree-lined road, misty and half poetic. The caption read, "Growth is rarely comfortable, but always necessary. Letting go. Letting light in." It got a handful of likes. Mostly her photo circle. I didn't react. But apparently, others did. Over the next week, I got 3 messages from people in our shared orbit. Friends who had originally stayed neutral. One of them, Claire, wrote, "I didn't know she asked for a break to chase her ex. I thought you two had just grown apart. Damn, that puts things in perspective." Another said, "Man, you really took the high road, huh? She's been spinning it like you bailed. Glad I asked before assuming." I didn't campaign. I didn't explain. I just told them, people show you who they are when decisions cost them something. She made hers. I made mine. And slowly, without drama, the narrative shifted. The sympathy she thought she'd get wasn't arriving. The followers she thought would rally stayed quiet or started drifting. By the time I packed my last box, I realized something simple and sharp. It's not just about who stays in your life. It's about who keeps telling the truth when the story gets inconvenient. And for once, my version wasn't loud. It was just real. No bitterness. No noise. Just motion. I got the first email on a Thursday morning. Subject line, quick question about Fiona. It was from a couple named Julia and Nate, clients Fiona had photographed last fall for their engagement. They'd been so pleased they'd referred her to at least 4 other couples. The kind of loyal base every freelance artist depends on. Now they were reaching out to me. Not because they thought I could shoot photos. Because they had questions. "Hi Eric," it began. "Hope this isn't weird, but we've heard a few different versions of what happened between you two. Fiona's mentioned you had conflicting life paths, but someone else said she asked for a break to reconnect with an ex. We're a little confused and wondering if she's in a good place to take on our May wedding." I sat there staring at the screen, wondering if it was worth replying. But I figured if they had the nerve to ask, they deserved a real answer. So I typed, "Hi Julia. Appreciate the directness. Yes, Fiona asked for a break to explore unresolved feelings with her ex. I took that seriously and stepped away. I can't speak to her current emotional state, but if you're concerned about her stability or commitment to the project, it's worth asking her directly. No drama, just truth. Wishing you both an amazing wedding day. Eric." I didn't expect a reply. But 2 hours later, Julia responded, "Thanks for the honesty. We're going to explore other photographers for now. Hope Portland treats you well." That was the start. By the following week, I heard from 2 more of Fiona's former clients, both unsure whether to book her for upcoming events, both uncomfortable with the rumors. And Fiona? She noticed. I know because she finally texted me again. Not with apologies. Not with regret. But with accusation. "Fiona, what are you telling people? Why are clients pulling out?" I stared at the message, amazed. Not "Are you okay? Or can we talk?" Just straight to damage control. I replied once, and only once. Me. All I said was the truth. "You asked for time to see if Nathan still meant something. I told them that. That's it." There was a long pause. Then, "Fiona, you're ruining my business." Me, no. "You did that the moment you treated someone's heart like a placeholder. Clients notice. People notice." I just confirmed what they already suspected. She didn't reply after that. But I started hearing more whispers. Friends who used to tag her in posts quietly untagged her. Her name stopped showing up on recommendations. The wedding groups she relied on went quiet. Turns out, people don't like uncertainty in their vendors. Especially not the kind that goes to FIANCÉE to find herself in someone else's arms. And me? I didn't gloat. I didn't feel satisfaction. But I felt something better. Freedom from the fallout. And not one speck of guilt. She showed up at my office without calling ahead. It was a Friday. Late afternoon. Rain streaked the windows while I sat reviewing blueprint layouts for a community arts center renovation in Portland. Copper, my recently adopted golden retriever pup, lay snoozing at my feet. Then there was a knock. Soft. Hesitant. I looked up and saw her standing behind the glass. Fiona. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just diminished. Her hair was pulled into a loose bun, and her coat looked a little too thin for the weather. She didn't have makeup on, which wasn't unusual, but her face had the hollow, slightly frayed look of someone who hadn't been sleeping. I opened the door slowly. "Hey," she said, almost in a whisper. "Can I come in?" I didn't nod, but I stepped aside. She looked around the office like she didn't recognize it. In a way, she didn't. This was my new space, in a new city, in a new life. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. I tried calling, but I waited. "Nathan and I. It's over," she said finally. "It's been over. He hasn't changed. Same lies, same distractions. It was a mistake." I said nothing. "I thought I needed to go backward to understand who I was," she went on. "But all I did was destroy the one part of my life that actually felt stable, safe, real." Still, I stayed quiet. She looked at me then. Her voice cracked. "Eric, I miss you." I let that hang in the air a moment before replying. "I don't think you miss me," I said slowly. "I think you miss what I represented. Steadiness. Safety. A backup plan." "That's not true," she whispered. "It is," I said gently. "Because when you wanted to go chasing nostalgia, I didn't stop you. I let you go, and you were fine with that, as long as you thought I'd be here when it collapsed." Tears slid down her cheeks now. I was scared. "I know," I said, "but you weren't honest. You didn't want space, Fiona. You wanted permission to gamble, with my heart as collateral." She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her coat. "Is there really no way back from this?" I leaned forward, voice calm. "This was never just about Nathan. The issue was how easily you treated commitment like a maybe, like a trial run. I'm not a test drive." She didn't say anything after that, just sat there, quietly crying while Copper lifted his head and stared at her like he wasn't sure what she was doing in his home. Finally, she stood. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "For everything." I nodded once. "I hope you find what you're looking for." She walked out with slow steps. I didn't watch her go. I turned back to my plans, took a sip of coffee, and reached down to scratch Coppa's ears. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel a trace of ache. Only air. Only lightness. Only forward. I didn't expect to enjoy Portland as much as I did. But there was something about the rhythm of the city, the way the trees hung low over the sidewalks, the quiet buzz of coffee shops filled with artists and people who didn't care what you wore or who you used to be. Here, I didn't have a shared history following me around like a stray dog. I could just be Eric. My apartment sat on the second floor of a cedar-paneled building tucked into the edge of Forest Park. From my balcony, I could see the hills stretching out in waves, mist curling through the trees each morning like it was painted in. I'd make a mug of dark roast, step outside with Copper at my side, and breathe in that smell of pine and rain. I started running again. At first just a couple miles, then 4, then 6. The trailheads were soft and forgiving, and Copper loved the routine. We signed up for a fall half marathon. He wouldn't be allowed to run it, but he didn't seem to mind. He just liked the training. And I joined a local design collective, a loose group of architects, builders, and artists who met twice a month to brainstorm wild projects. One week it was a treehouse studio built into a ravine. Another, a mobile greenhouse that doubled as a reading space. Nobody cared where I'd come from. They just liked my ideas. It was around that time I got a call from an old college friend. We caught up on life. He'd gotten engaged, moved to Chicago, was thinking of starting a business. Near the end of the call, he said, "Hey, I don't want to make things weird, but I heard Fiona's not doing so great." I didn't say anything. He went on. "A friend of mine still lives in Asheville. Said she's back living with her dad. Work dried up. Some clients dropped off. She's laying low, I guess." "Yeah," I said. I figured. Later that night, I got a message from her sister. "Mara, hey, I know this is random, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry for how everything went down. Fiona didn't just underestimate you. She misunderstood the kind of man you are." I stared at the message for a while before replying. "Me, thanks. I'm good now." Because I was. I had my mornings, my dog, my city, and best of all, my peace. The email came early on a Sunday morning. I was lacing up my shoes for a long run when I saw the notification flash across my phone. Subject, photos. From Fiona. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity, that old itch, got the better of me. "Hi, Eric. I hope you're doing well. I've been meaning to reach out for a while now. I was wondering if you still have the old digital photo files from our trips, Yosemite, Colorado, Acadia. I lost a few of my backups when I switched hard drives, and I realized you might still have the shared folder. If it's not too much trouble, could you send them over? Thanks. Fiona." No greeting beyond that. No updates. Just a request for the past. I sat on the edge of the couch for a moment, tying the second shoe slowly. Copper came over and rested his chin on my knee, tail wagging, waiting for the leash. I opened my laptop, typed a reply, deleted the first draft, wrote a second one, then finally settled on this. Fiona, I know what those photos meant to you. They meant something to me, too, back then. But I've moved on from that chapter. Those years were a lesson, not a legacy. I hope you find what you're looking for. But I'm not the keeper of that version of us anymore. Take care. Eric. I hit send. About an hour later, I saw the post on her Instagram story. A muted beige background with a quote in cursive overlay. Letting go is harder when no one's holding on. No name. No tags. But I knew. And I didn't care. That afternoon, I deleted the cloud folder entirely. It wasn't out of spite. It was just time. The drives, the albums, the old tokens from a life I no longer lived. They didn't belong to me anymore. They belonged to someone I had already said goodbye to. She tried one more time. A long post on Facebook, vaguely accusing certain people of abandoning shared memories, of turning cold, of being too proud to acknowledge what we built. Comments rolled in, sympathy, confusion, support. I didn't respond, because silence is a response. And mine was final. That Monday morning, I woke up early. The mist was thick and low, curling through the trees like smoke from a quiet fire. I clipped the leash onto Kappa's collar, pulled on my hoodie, and stepped out into the chill. We ran the ridge trail. 6 miles of quiet gravel and pine, the only sound our feet and his soft panting. At the overlook, I paused. The city below was waking up, stretching into its Monday. I stood still, breathing it in. Copper leaned against my leg, tail flicking gently. I scratched behind his ear. No more waiting. No more explaining. No more being a maybe in someone else's story. I had my own now. And it was good.